Hello and welcome back to day 97 of 100 days of code with Lilly Code, and thanks a million for joining me, guys. So what we were doing here last time was working on our individual user page, so we're just going to pick off exactly where we left off and continue on. So yeah, we've just been building out this single user page, so we have specified all of these different properties of the user object that we can access. So this is what we're expecting to get back, and then I copied and pasted some of this because I was just typing it for ages, but this is the HTML then for this page to show an individual user. So great, just watching the video. Okay, perfect. So let's just see how it's going by testing it out. So we'll say hello. Okay, so we still have an error here. That's no problem. We were in the middle of building this out, so okay, so we're not getting the users back or sending them back, it looks like, because we don't have a length and we can't map over them. So, okay. Okay, so I'm just watching the video still. Okay. Okay, so one thing we do need to do is create these. No, that's okay. So I thought we had our own components, but these are just the icons, so that's fine. But this repo list, we do have to create our repo list component. Yeah, so we're doing that now. Cool. So first of all, we'll just come into our context here, and we want to add the repositories as something we're going to get back from the context. So we'll get the users, the user, the repos, and this will just be an empty array for now. So cool. And then we just also need to send it back out. So we will do that. So we'll put it underneath the user, so repos, and this will be state.repos. Cool. And now I just need to create the function that's going to do that for me. So underneath here, I will have another function that's going to do a call. So I'll say const get repos. I'll call it get user repos. And this is going to be an asynchronous function. And we want to take in the user's login name. And then we'll open this up. So the first thing we want to do is run the set users, which is on the, or set loading, sorry, which is on in our context here as well. So what this does and it's one of the functions that we call in the reducer here. So here we have set loading, and that just sets the loading to true to say that we're doing something. So we've set this up that we can dispatch this action by passing the type of set loading. So we're going to call that first of all, and then we'll have our const response, which is equal to await. This is what we want to await the fetch back from the repository. So we'll pass in where we want to fetch from. So I'll just copy this from up above here. So we want the GitHub URL, and then we want the person to log in as well. So we're going to need both of these parts. And these should be in backticks here, so I'll just put it into backticks so it knows to evaluate the parts with the $sign. That's why we put in those backticks there. So we want the GitHub URL, then we want the login, and then we want the person's login name. So I know the repos then, sorry, repos. Yeah, so you have the GitHub URL, then the person's login name, and then /repos, and this will get back the repositories for us, because this is the endpoint that we can hit in the GitHub API. This is provided that you can go to /repos when you pass in somebody's name, and we should be directed to their repositories then. So then we also just want to add a bit more in here. We need to pass in our headers. So I'll just open up a new object here and say headers. Yeah. And this is going to be another object, and we want to pass in our authorization, which is just going to be our GitHub token. So I can also copy that from here, just because it's handier. And just so we don't have any spelling mistakes or anything like that, that's what we want there. So great. And then we want to do something with this, so we'll say const data is equal to what's coming back, so we'll await response.json cool JSON. Yep. And then we will dispatch a new action here to get the repos. So the type here is going to be get repos. And comma, and we also want the payload, and what we're passing in is the data. So just to make sure that this is accessible to all the different components, we also pass it into this provider so that we can use it elsewhere. So we'll add it down here, get repos. Get user repos, yep. Perfect. And now we want to actually set this up in our dispatch, in our reducer. So we'll say case get repos, get user repos, or just get repos. I called the dispatch function, so get repos. And what we want this to return again is the state as it is. So this is an object, and it'll be state and loading is false. And we also just want the repos as the action.payload. And I'll just put the loading as the last thing that we have here, just for ease of readability and how it is in the previous examples. So perfect. So now I'm going to create a new separate component for the repo items. So we'll do that. We'll go into components. And I'll create a new folder in here. And this will be called repos, and then a new file. And this will be repo list. And I'll just say repos in here. And then we also want an item. And we're going to use this list within our user. So we could go and import it, but that's okay for the minute. It will automatically import for us when we go to use it. Okay, and where I want to actually use this is in the users, in the user, which is pages, in pages. So our user page, yeah. And right down at the bottom here, we have our repos list added in. Perfect. So this is what we were just creating there. Well, we created our repo list. Yeah, perfect. Okay, and is this imported from the right place then? No. So let's just type it out. There we go. So if we just hover over the light bulb, normally it tells you where you can import it from, but it's not giving us that, so we'll just do it manually here. So I'll say import users, or sorry, repo list from, and we want to go to components, repos, and repo list. Perfect. So now in this user.jsx file, this is where I want to call this. So I'll bring it in from the context and I'll say get user repos. Yeah. And also the repos. And then we want to use this. So in our use effect here, we can see that we are getting that user and we're getting the user repo. So great. And we're passing in the params login from when we root. Okay, so now that we're calling that and we're getting it from use effect, it should just be passed in, which it is. So we did pass repos in as a prop. We just need to tell it what to do now in our repos list component. So here we want to take in those repos as a prop because we've passed it through from our other component there. So repos, and just make sure that that does match up there. So we were just in our users, our user file, and yeah, repos, we did call a repo, so perfect. And now back in our repo list, we will define this. So we'll just bring in prop types and define a prop type for this as well. So I will import prop types from React prop types, just from prop types, sorry. From prop types, cool. And then we'll implement this so we know what specific prop types we have, so that we'll get an error if we pass through the wrong type, which is just good type checking here. So we'll say repo list dot prop types and repos, and this is of prop types array and is required. So now we want to actually do something with these, so we'll add a class name to our div here, and we'll add some class names. So we'll say rounded LG, these are Tailwind CSS classes, and shadow large as well, card and BG base 100. And then within here we want to add a few more bits, so we'll have another div. So here we'll have another div with the class name of card body, and then we want a h2 in here, and here I will add in the class names of h2 text 3XL, so we want the text to be larger, my4 just margin 4, font bold, card title, and in here I'll say top repositories. And then what I want to do is map through each of these repositories and show the top repository. So we'll say repos.map, and for each instance of the map we want to get an individual repo. It's going to be an arrow function, and then we'll display a h3 for each of these repos, and we'll just say repo. So okay, great. And then in user, public gists is not defined in user. Okay, so for the time being I'll just console this out because we're getting an error and I just want to see how everything else is working. So we'll have to see what that is in coming back, but for the time being hopefully we should be able to see an individual page. So I'll just search Lilly. What's going on in the console? So we're not getting those results back at the moment, so okay, cool. Okay. Let's check out the network tab just to see if we're getting any indication there, because here I have that it wasn't getting the users with the query parameter of Lilly. So okay. Okay, well let's just go back and have a look here at our GitHub context. So when we're getting our user repos, what I want to do as well, actually just before I forgot about this, is to sort the results coming back, and then also we need to figure out what's going on there, but we need to sort the results coming back as well. So I'll create a constant called params, and this is going to be equal to new URL search parameters, and we have sort. So we want to sort it by when it was created, and then 10. So this just needs to be a string called created. And this needs to be passed into the fetch here. So when we're sending the URL, we want to pass those parameters as well. So I'll do question mark to add the question mark just as itself, and then I want to pass through these params as well. So in our repo list, these should now be our latest repositories that we're getting back, because they're sorted by when they were created. Yeah. So I also want a separate a repo item as well as repo list. So we want to be able to use an individual item component here as well. So I'll say repos, repo item .jsx and rfce to start that. And I'll just put in item into the div here. So I'll bring this into the repo list because we're going to want to use it. So this is where we want to display it. When we map through each of the repos and we get one individual repo instead of all of the repos, in here I want to display a repo item when that happens. So cool. And it automatically imported that for us. So when you're mapping over something, you need to provide a key, or else React will wonder where it is because it can't uniquely identify it. So we'll give it the ID of repo.id, and we also want to pass in that repo prop, which will be repo. So now in our repo item component, we want to take this repo prop that we've just passed in. Yeah. And also create our prop type. So we'll say repo item dot prop types equals this object, and this is going to be repo has prop types. Nope. Has prop types of an object, and it is required. Cool. And we need to bring this in as well, so I will import prop types from prop types. And get rid of this search because that's just in the way. Cool. Okay. So what we want from this individual repo item is, we're going to deconstruct that now and I'll show you. So we want to declare a constant. This is an object and it has the name, property, description, HTML, URL, forks. So this is just all information about the repository. Open issues. Watchers count. And stargazers count. And this is going to be equal to a repo. So the repo object will have these properties in it. So now we can actually use this. So I'll add some class names to this top level div. I'll say margin bottom 2, rounded medium, card, background grey, 800, hover, BG grey 900, BG grey and 900. Perfect. Okay, and I'm missing my closing quote there. Sorry, yeah. So, and now in here what we want to do is add a few more classes. So we want a card body, a div with the class name of card body, and another one with margin bottom 2, text XL, font semi bold. So I actually want this to be a H3, and then inside here I'll have a link. So I want an A tag with the href, and this will be the HTML URL will be the link. And I want this to be a clickable icon, so we can add in our font awesome icon here. So FA link. And that brought it in, great. And we have a class name on this of inline and margin right of 1. Cool. And here I want to show the name. Then under here I want a paragraph with the class of MB3. This will be for the description. Then I want a div. I just want that to be a regular old div, and then I'm going to house another div in here with a few class names on it. So then I want another div with the class name of MR2 badge info. Badge large. Another icon here, so font awesome I for the watchers and stuff who has been watching this repository. So I'll add another class name onto this to style this icon. So I want a margin right of 2 on this icon, so MR of 2. And then this is going to be the watchers in here, so I, rather than self closing it, I will close it with its own closing tag, so I can put in something in here. This is going to be so actually I still want this to be self-closing, and the name can just be put in directly after, so I'll get rid of these for the time being. Yep. And then under here, So I want to copy a few of these down now. So yeah, I want a few different icons, so I'll copy this 3 times. And here, rather than badge info, this is going to be badge success. And this will be the stargazers count. And the icon can be FA star. I'll put badge error for this one. We want to change the color again, so badge error. And this is going to be open issues that we're displaying here. And the icon will be FA info. And then the last one will be badge warning class. And this is for FA utensils is the icon we want to show, so utensils. And here I'll show the forks, or how many times the repository has been forked. So perfect. Okay, so I just need to import this last class, so let me do that and save. Cool. Okay, so now I'm going to dispatch. I'm going to dispatch some more actions, but do it in a slightly different way. So I'm just listening to the video here. Okay, so we're going to write some more actions. So what we're going to do is create an actions file and then dispatch the actions from that file. So we'll see it all now in operation. So first we'll come to our GitHub context here. And here I'm passing users. And so users, which is state.user, state.repo, yeah. So instead what we can do, rather than doing state.state.state.state. is just pass through the whole state. So spread that state and pass it all in. Great. And these are the other functions here. So what we only want to pass through here is the state and the dispatch at the moment. We're just refactoring this to see how it works in a slightly different way. So we'll pass our state and dispatch. So I'll create an actions file. We'll call it GitHub Actions. And hub should be lowercase in this case, and .jsx. Just to stick with the same naming convention. So what I want in here is to start off with our GitHub definitions. So we have our GitHub URL. We're moving our actions into another folder just to say which part is actions, which part are all going to add up now. So you can see it a little bit clearer hopefully. So we'll cut our GitHub URL and our GitHub token and move it into our actions file. I also want the whole search users function. Yeah. So I can just collapse this and grab it and paste it into our actions here. So we have our search users, which is an asynchronous function taken in the text. First of all, it sets the loading to true. Then it has the query parameters, which are coming from the end of the URL search parameters, which we're passing through to the fetch to the GitHub URL, which is housed in an environment file, yeah, but it is literally just the URL of GitHub. So then we're api.github.com, I should say, and then we're appending on search users and the parameters and passing through the token, yeah. And then we have our items, which are passing through in the payload. Cool. So what we actually want to do now is we can set loading in the component when we call this. So for the time being, I'll just take this out of here. And we're going to want to dispatch as well from the component. So here I'll just return the items so we can use them. So I'll say return an items. Perfect. And then this function needs to be exportable because we're going to use it elsewhere. So I will export this function. And now this can be used in the user search. So I'll call in the action. I'll say import search users, the search users function, and I want to get that from so it's in components context, sorry, and then GitHub and GitHub Actions. Yep. So now where we were calling search users, we can call this. So this is where we were calling search users. So now this is going to be our function. So we'll assign this to a variable. So we'll say const users is equal to, and this is equal to our search users function that we're running, and we're passing in the text. So we need to await the results of this, and then this whole function needs to be async because we're awaiting. So our handle submit here, this should be an async. So okay, and then once we have the users, what we want to do is dispatch and I want to dispatch the action with a type of search get user. And the payload is going to be users. And here I also want to dispatch the loading. So here I will dispatch get set loading. Okay, cool. And in this case we don't need a payload. And now we should be able to get dispatch as well from our context here. So we'll say dispatch. So just now we need to clean up our GitHub context a little bit. So here we can see we're passing in the search users function, but we're not getting it from in here anymore. So we need to just remove that and save. And let's check how we're getting on. So here in our user search JSX, return is outside of the function. So our user search.jsx here. Okay. Yep. Okay. So what are we missing here? Here is our form. So div. There is our other closing div. This is all self-contained. That looks fine. But we are missing a closing tag or something, because we're having an error with this. So we'll just take out the things we're not using as well for the moment. And save. I'm really not sure why that's giving out right now. So if users.length is greater than 0, then show this div. So just for pig iron's sake, just to see, if commenting some of this out will tell me where it is. So let's just get rid of our form for a moment. Let's comment it out. Aha, it's this extra closing bracket, isn't it? Yeah. So that's why. Because we are closing too soon. So this looks like it's closing off our function here. Yeah. So I don't know how an extra closing bracket got in there, but that shouldn't be there. So now this is no longer throwing an error at the bottom. So let's just reload. User search line 43 is not a function in our user search component, so I'm definitely still doing something wrong here. Dispatch. So here's our if block. Then we're dispatching this action, or we're dispatching that action. Let me just actually have some else parentheses here, curly brackets, and save. line 44. So our user should be getting populated with our search users function. Okay. Yeah. So I'm just trying to read it to see, do I see anything wrong? So get users is the right action to dispatch. We are passing through the users as our payload. Yeah. And we got our dispatch passed through from our context. We pulled it in. Yes. So let's just check again. Reload and let's see what this is saying. So users is not defined. Clear users is not defined. So I know where it's saying users is not defined. I'm trying to figure that out. Clear users is in our user search component here. So clear users is not defined in here. Okay. So our clear users, that's not anything external. This isn't a proper anything, so this should definitely be defined in this component. So let's just define that. So we'll say const clear users, which it was here, but it's not here now, so it needs to go back in. Clear users. And what we want to do here is just set the users back to nothing. So we will just set the text to nothing. Okay. Okay, so FAI in our repo item is not defined. Let's go fix that. So here in our repo item, FAI needs to be imported up here. So cool. And save. Let's just knock down some of these errors and then we have a bit of a better idea as to what is going wrong here. Okay, yes. So in our GitHub context, I got rid of too many things all at once. I still hadn't moved everything over. So we have our actions here. And just so we don't get an error, we'll leave these declarations in our GitHub provider for our other files that are using these, for our other functions that are using these GitHub URL and the GitHub token. Repo item line 42. Okay, so now we just don't have the users. Okay. Users is not defined in our user search. So in our user search here, on line 35, it doesn't like the way we have done this. So within this div, that should be on the submit. That should be only firing when we handle the submit. Okay. Let's just reload. Users is not defined. Okay. Users. So we shouldn't have to deconstruct this from... Okay. I didn't think so, but it looks like... Yes. Yes, because we need our initial state, don't we, of the empty array. Okay. And we're not getting great results at the moment. So let's try something else. Just to make sure. So search users is not a function. User search line 26. So on line 26 here. I want this to come directly from here. Search users, okay, so let's go back there. Yeah. Okay. So this should be getting passed in. Well, the function is named differently. Okay, so in our GitHub Actions, this is our search user, yeah. Okay. We should be getting it from there. So we can take it out from our context because we're getting it from our actions now and save. And just see if then does it know where to get it from. Then let's reload our page. Let's search for a name. Okay. So we have some different areas, which is great. Okay. So we're getting an error when we try to make this request first of all. So let's just clear and type in something else and search. Okay. Search users. But we're getting a 401, so I think something must be wrong with that URL. So in our GitHub Actions, we're going to the GitHub URL. There was one /search users and the parameter or the params. So yes, that seems okay. Okay. So let's just go back to our terminal here and see what else we have. So, and then the reason it can't read length is because it can't find any users. So that makes sense. And why it also can't map over them, because it doesn't have any. So cool. Let's just reload. Okay. So yes, it's initializing it as empty. And we should see something happening here, which we are not at the moment, but that's okay because we will figure it out. So guys, I'm going to leave it there for now. We're nearly at the very end of this journey. Oh my god, I'm so excited. I can't wait. So if you've been following along and you've been enjoying my journey, please do like and subscribe and stay tuned for more tutorial based, informational based tutorials and videos where I'll talk through whatever concepts you want. But yeah, just a bit more learning in those as opposed to me just coding for 100 days. So thank you so much guys. I appreciate every last second and have a lovely week for yourselves. Thank you.